What's up, my lovely pod family? I am currently 2 weeks out from my tongue and lip tie procedure, and wow, am I thankful to be feeling better. That recovery was intense. But so much has changed in my body, which I'll be sharing about in a future episode that I'm going to do with my osteopath who has been instrumental in this whole process. Get ready, it's going to be a really good one, especially because the reel that I did on Instagram to promote the last episode, where I talked about how my oral restrictions have affected me, went viral and has had nearly 1 million views, with people leaving quite a variety of comments, either in support of getting these ties released or not supporting it and being very vocal about that too. So, we're going to discuss all of that on the future podcast episode as well. Anyway, today's guest is a gem of a person. Her name is Kate Codrington, and she is a mentor, a speaker, a facilitator, an artist, a writer, and she has been a therapist for the past 30 years. Yep, she is busy. She is also the author of Second Spring, which is a self-care guide to menopause. But it's not just any self-care guide. It is incredible. I know that you probably hear that all the time, but it really is. It's got some amazing insight, and she shares some of that on the episode. She is also the host of Life, an Inside Job. It's a podcast. And trust me when I say you want to hear what she has to say about what's really going on during the perimenopause and menopause stages of the life cycle. I literally hung on every single word she said, and I think you will too. Enjoy the show. Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for being here with me.
I am so excited for this conversation.
Oh, good. Me too. I know. As I was saying to you, turning 42, I'm about to turn 43 this year. It has been kind of a reckoning. And I know that you, just before we were talking on recording, or just before we were recording, you mentioned something about sort of this unknown time. And it really does feel like that. It feels like a bit of a reawakening, like I said, a reckoning of who I was with who I'm becoming. It's very interesting.
Well, our 40s is an unknown time in so many ways. Our hormone balance is shifting. And you already named some of the most important changes, not about cycles, but about who you think you are and who we think we are. And perimenopause wakes us up into questioning what we thought was certain, and we move into the unknown. And as anybody knows who has been in the process of change, like all humans, obviously, we have to not know and question it before we can move on. Oh. But, you know, we're in the 21st century, and being cyclical beings as we are, and we know that we're cyclical beings, and we like to know, we like to be in control, we want to know, or at least we want the illusion of control, right? Yes. And this is true for all of us, because when we have that, we feel safer and we feel we can let go. So for this and many other reasons, perimenopause is such a game changer, and there's so much growth possible here. And I reckon if cis men, right, had perimenopause and had menopause, this would be like the ultimate spiritual retreat. You know, they'd be on pedestals up mountains, and we'd be going, oh, John, he's on his perimenopause retreat, and he's so spiritual. But as having a female body, we live this not knowing. And the good thing is that we've been practicing every menstrual cycle that we have. We're practicing. You get a little taste of this not knowing.
Right. Oh my goodness. This is so brilliant. And it so encapsulates what I'm feeling and what I know so many women are going through. And it's really interesting to me because what you just said about every menstrual cycle, we get practice in this not knowing. And yet every menstrual cycle is torturous for so many humans on this planet. We don't have any idea how to tap into that. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Just about that not knowing what that's like?
Yeah. So our menstrual cycle has seasons. So after we finish our period up to ovulation, we're in a place where we are engaged with the world, with the outside, with exploring outside and serving others. So we get more expansive up to ovulation. Then after ovulation, that switches and we turn our attention inwards. So we're more inward focused, more interested in our own values and serving our own healing. So it's this expansion and contraction, then expansion and contraction. And this happens as a balance, really. If we were ever, well, we know what happens when we give and give and give and we're out in the world all the time, we burn out, right? And yet somehow we resist and we kick and scream this inward process. So most people listening who have a menstrual cycle will be familiar with day 21, day 22, day 20, I've got this. I can do this life business. I've got everything together and I'm holding it together and I'm feeling pretty sexy and pretty good. And my to-do list is like 2/3 done. Day 21, you want to burn the house down, leave your job, kill your partner. It's all gone. Right?
Yeah.
Like who can't relate to that?
It's so relatable.
Every month. And yet it's still a surprise.
Yeah. It's so true. Yes, it's a surprise. Very true.
Because our estrogenic self at ovulation, which is summary, is where we build our ego, a healthy ego, a good ego, because we feel effective in the world. But in order to evolve as humans, that ego has to be softened and dissolved. And each time we come into the premenstruum, the things that trigger you, the foods that set you off balance. I was just listening to your episode about blood sugar. I mean, that's like crucial in the premenstruum, right? Yeah. The sort of emotions that trouble you, the sort of wounds that keep popping up. These are the things that are going to continue to trigger you in perimenopause. So while you have a cycle, it's really good practice to notice what supports you through your premenstruum and through your period, because this is going to serve you later.
That is so insightful and so helpful, I think, for many listeners, because like you said, we tend to be caught off guard by our symptoms a lot of the time. And it's because we're sort of living outside of our bodies a little bit. And, and we're very much in the world and we're thinking about all the things around us and all these external factors and really not tuning in. So thank you for that. And, it brings up something that I have been thinking about a lot with this sort of the menstrual life cycle. And I sometimes joke that the messaging that we get around female bodies is that of pain and suffering from the time that we're really young. We hear about puberty being a nightmare for girls, particularly, right? It's always girls, and periods being terrible with, all the things that they come with. And then we're scared to death about getting pregnant. So there's the fear around birth control. And then we talk about fertility and how hard it is to then become pregnant when we actually want to later on. And then we have the fear around birth and the challenges of postpartum. And then we hit perimenopause and then the dreaded menopause and then all the terrible things that come during that phase. And then basically we die. And I feel like, where is the joy in the female body? I just can't get over that this is essentially what we're told, with very little good news about how our bodies work and the magic and the gifts of our menstrual cycle. And then this next phase of the menstrual life cycle. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, Nicole, do you think there's a conspiracy here?
I mean, a little bit, I kind of do.
Do you think that there's a misogynistic story?
Perhaps a little one.
I mean, yeah, and it's absolutely true what you say, that humans love negativity. That's what makes us pay attention. That's how all news stories are sold. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of health stories are sold. That's a lot of health people working in the wellness industry often play on this. And it's how, clickbait, okay? We are evolved to be more alert to negative messages. Unfortunately, our thoughts follow the fear and we start to believe them. And this is not necessarily true. There are so many gifts to be had through these rites of passage. And I think part of that, where do I go? There's so many ways I could go and so much I want to say about this. But the main difficulty with perimenopause is fear, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're taught that our bodies are failing because we're aging and that we need to fix it. We're in a faulty body anyway if we're female, because it's messy, it bleeds, and we're cyclical and we're not linear.
Yep.
And then we're aging, so our fertility must be on the way out. Therefore, we are of no longer service to the world. And so we are afraid. And if you don't believe me, go to your local pharmacy and look at the cosmetics counter and how many cosmetics are based on selling stuff to you to avoid getting old.
Oh yeah, pretty much
but if
everything.
you're avoiding getting old, then you must be dead, right? It's like, where is the logic in this? To age is a privilege, and we're coming to a time where the people who are approaching perimenopause and menopause are better educated, they're more awake, they're more aware, they're better nourished. We have higher expectations, we have higher creativity. We're actually rewriting the script as we go along, just as we have with periods, and that you've seen how much change there is around periods in the last 10 years. It's been extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely massive. I know. I was just talking about that yesterday, about how, yes, there are still a lot of problems, but I have seen an incredible change in just the last decade.
Yeah. So I have a teenage daughter. I hope that by the time she arrives at 45, she's going to have a completely different story.
Yes, here's hoping. So that actually brings me to another question. You mentioned the fair, and I feel like it's based on the unknown. It's based on the stories that we've been told. Like, why is there so much fear around menopause? Is it like what you were talking about, the fact that we're no longer fertile, so we're no longer considered useful to society? And I've heard this many, many times from my mother and from other older women in my family and other women I know who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, saying that they just feel like they became invisible over time. And I think that's probably multifactorial, this fear around this time of our life cycle.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's exactly as you say. It's unknown, which was where we started. Because it is unknown, as well as not knowing what you need to release through your perimenopause, what identities you need to let go of. You also don't know what your experience is going to be like. There's an enormous variety of normal. So from no symptoms at all. So people say, I barely noticed it. I'm not sure I believe that, but I barely noticed it, through to 15 years of menstrual upheaval. And everything in between. Some people have no symptoms at all. And then I was talking to someone the other week, and I think she said 5 years post-menopause, stuff started kicking in. So it really is unknown, and there isn't a normal way of being. There isn't an expectation or a nice, neat path that you can follow, except that you're being called to be kind to yourself. You're being called into relationship with yourself as your energy drops. You're being called to look inwards and see, well, what would really serve me here now to be really compassionate with myself? And that might be taking that will almost certainly be taking more rest. but it might be taking hormone therapy, or it might be taking supplements, or it might be doing nothing at all, or it might be changing your yoga practice, or it might be 1,000 things. And that will change over time, but it has to come from a place of kindness and compassion and deepening relationship with yourself.
Perfect. And, that brings me into this narrative that has emerged recently that you can just delay menopause or avoid it completely. And I've heard this from women. They've asked me, is that possible? They've heard a doctor saying that, or they've heard something online somewhere where people are saying these kinds of things. And it kind of feels akin to saying, let's just delay puberty, as if, we should just stop this vital body process from happening that has far-reaching impacts on our health and longevity. And so with menopause, it just feels like we're treating it as this thing that doesn't naturally happen. So I'm curious if you have thoughts on that, because I feel like it ties into what we were just talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, I say, I mean, as we mentioned before we started recording, why would people want to do that? And I would be really curious to hear why. What is your motivation for delaying? What is this about, really? So is it that you want to have a child, but you're busy right now? Having children later, and this is something that is just not talked about, having children later means that you will be encountering different challenges. You will be having a summary, expansive, needy, estrogenic requirement in a time when you're going to be wanting more space and quiet, and you are going to be dealing with that challenge, nose to nose. And if you're too busy now, then why? What is going on? What is going on now in your life? I think it's really interesting, the why. And if it's about fear, then it's the fear that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely multiple things, right? And it makes me think of something you posted recently about the medicalization of menopause. And I saw your quote from the British Medical Journal, which I was excited that they said, what they said was basically, this creates more fear around this stage of our life cycle. And it certainly puts an emphasis on the negative part of it. And of course, this also builds on the last point, right, about delaying this inevitable stage of life. And I see a lot of women being put on the pill or an IUD to manage perimenopausal symptoms. And then they're just told to stay on those methods of birth control sort of indefinitely, and into this menopausal transition. And so I feel like there's inherent problems here too.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't know where you were.
Exactly.
Because if you don't have a natural hormonal cycle, then you will not be aware where you are. And for me, I feel that this is not helpful for my hormonal growth, actually, because there are advantages. There are so many advantages to being in perimenopause. You learn your discernment, you learn your values, you have to learn how to care for yourself. You have to put yourself first to some extent. You have to learn how to pause and connect with yourself in a way that is meaningful for you. You have to learn to rest. It's like endless stuff. You have to learn the spiritual muscle of being with the unknown and become your own best friend. Or it's like a bespoke spiritual workshop that's designed just for you and delivered just for you. All your issues will come up and heal your wound. I mean, for goodness sake, really heal those wounds, to look again and really care for that teenage girl who wasn't seen or who was hurt, and the woman in her 30s who really wanted to be seen, who really wanted to express herself and didn't get that opportunity. And all this stuff comes up, and we feel it as it gets described. We take that into a negative framework, and that gets described as too much feeling angry, feeling depressed, feeling anxious. And yes, there are mental health issues often there, but equally often is to do with unresolved issues that are coming up for healing in perimenopause, that need, the feelings need to be felt and witnessed and really held. We need to be held there and not dismissed as, oh, I'm going mad and I'm losing the plot. And I dream of a world where at 45 someone's thinking, I'm losing the plot, and saying, yes, welcome to this dignified space where you can let go, where you're allowed to let go, where you don't have to hold face and hold on, keep control and hold on to your armor. There has to be a time where we let go.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what a profound paradigm shift that would be. Oh man, I think about that. That's really something. So I really want to explore that a little bit more, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was how can we actually change the suffering that so many women experience in this time? And what you just described was exactly what we need to be doing. This idea of, you said, putting down the armor and just letting go and releasing so much of this identity that we've created over the previous 3 decades. Where do we begin? How do we do this thing?
Well, my teachers have this beautiful, at Red School, have this beautiful formula of taking 1%, like a homeopathic dose. So if your desire is to go to the Caribbean for 6 months, then creating 1% of that in your life and weaving it in daily. So self-care is often sort of as, a spa date. You work yourself to the bone and then go on a spa date, maybe overnight if you're really lucky, and then you continue to work yourself to the bone. And that's not going to work, and it's not reachable for many of us. But how about weaving in 5 minutes with your house plant, with your favorite tree, walking around the park every day? Tiny homeopathic doses of kindness, of the kind of nourishment we want. It's like my daughter's doing her exams at the moment. It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst for change. Sorry, it's her revision whooshing around my head. It's a catalyst for change, doing these, because our bodies start to think, oh, well, maybe I could trust you. Maybe you do. Maybe you are going to follow through with what you say you're going to do. It's 1%. It's 1%. And it really requires us to slow down and pause even a little.
I was thinking about what you said about having to put ourselves first. And during this time of our lives, so it seems particularly potent in this 40s decade, we have so much going on. I have remarked to multiple friends over the last 2 years that, and pandemic aside, that life has just felt so full on, and it feels like it's on fast forward over the last couple of years. And like I said, not so much to do with the pandemic, but just in general. It started before that, for me at least. And a lot of them have echoed that sentiment. They've said the same thing. They just feel like there isn't that freedom that we had in our 30s. And there's just a lot more responsibility. Life just feels like a lot. And there's obviously children. There's potentially pregnancy for a lot of women who are now choosing to have kids a little bit later on. And then there's aging parents, potentially, there's relationship stuff. You're at the peak of your career or owning your business, things like that. And so I'm curious, what do you suggest? Like, are there some ways, and I love this 1%, by the way, that is, I think, an exceptional approach. And I'm curious if there are any other thoughts on how we do that. We go from constantly thinking about everyone else and their needs. And really, I mean, this, right? We tend to just put ourselves last. And this, I think, is quite a mindset shift. It's quite a jump.
Okay, I got 2 things for you. One is
Okay.
3 words. We're not going to play charades, but 3 words. Lower your standards. Lower your standards. Nobody has as high standards of you as yourself.
Yes.
Because we think that we have to do the parents and the kids and the job and the thing, and have a clean house, and look a particular way, and have clean knickers, and it's like, lower your standards. Stop that.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm like a Virgo through and through.
Good luck.
I know, right? It's obscene how hard I am on myself. And Hayden, my partner, is always telling this to me. He's just like, oh, you're ridiculous. I'm like, I know it's silly. It's so silly. But yes, I think what you just said, lowering your standards is just, it feels so difficult. So hard. I need to be schooled on this.
You can make a deal with yourself to lower some standard in some way that is manageable for you. This is not another project where we set ourselves up to fail. This week I am going to be a whole food plant-based vegan. No, not all in 1 week. Take it easy. Find the 1%. Find something that's doable, where you can soften. And if you can slow down and feel how that is in your body, to let go and notice that edge where it's uncomfortable, and get curious about, well, what is that there? What is it? How is it that I feel I'm going to let myself down? What is it I'm trying to prove? So, Sarah Blondin, the meditation teacher, she's a Canadian meditation teacher. She said something like, and I'm sure to get this wrong, you cannot receive while you are still trying to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
that hits deep there in the chest.
Yeah. It goes right in, doesn't it? It went right into me. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I know, I need a little lie down.
I know, right? I can receive that one for sure. But yes.
And okay, my last
the
shot.
second thing. Yes. Okay.
My last shot for the
or the third thing. Yeah.
The third thing. Is that 3? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. That first one was so good. I'm not sure.
There's one too many. Yes. That's the kind of counting we're into this afternoon. The third thing is, what kind of quality would you like in your postmenopausal life, in the last 30 decades of your life? Hopefully we'll have 30 decades, maybe more.
Or 3.
Or,
yeah. 3. I think you said 30, but it's all good. 30
would
be nice too.
Yeah, sorry. 30 years.
30
3
years,
decades.
Exactly.
Yeah, counting is completely gone today. What quality of life would you like for your postmenopause, for your second spring? So if we continue to push, okay, if I was to ask you, what is the single biggest influencer on period health? Is it stress?
I mean, it's psychological stress. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think so. Yeah.
So if we continue to push over the next, until you're postmenopausal, what quality of life do you expect to have in your second spring and your postmenopause?
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, when you ask that question, I think it's not this. It's not the hustling and the rushing and the constantly feeling like I have to prove myself, and I could go on and on and on. So 100%, it would be a major paradigm shift. Yeah.
And that is what perimenopause and menopause is asking us to look at.
Right. Which makes so much sense. And so when you work with people, how do you have them, how do you help them prepare for, as you said, a vibrant second spring?
My favorite thing is offering Yoga Nidra. So this is a guided meditation that's a little akin to being tucked up as a little kid and somebody reading you a story, so that you can it's lovely. So you can let go, and it creates a sort of hypnotic state, slightly hypnotic state. It's kind of in between. It's like when you're in between sleeping and waking, when you're going to sleep, and it makes us very open to positive suggestion. So that's how we rewrite the script. So you're resting, you're probably snoring your head off, but your subconscious is open to positive suggestion. So I use Yoga Nidra a lot, and I have, like a monthly session where I do that. Or I do it one-to-one bespoke, and people say, well, I like trees. My issue is fear of aging, and I like trees. So, I take them through a body rotation, or we go to the trees and we connect with the age of the trees. Bada bing, bada boom, and that's a sort of 30-minute meditation, Yoga Nidra meditation, that they can take away. The other thing that I do is called a medicine circle process. And in this, it's a guided visualization, a somatic process where we visit the seasons of your life. So we visit your teen self and your summer self, your perimenopausal self, your menopause self, and your second spring self, to gather information about what needs to happen, to gather up, to catch imagery and insight and wisdom from your intuition, to build that 1% into your life. And it's a very loving process, because it's very tightly held, it's very safe, and it entirely is that you're entirely in control, so that your nervous system is managed. It's not like this kind of cathartic thing. It's very much about gathering information from your intuition and your wisdom, and the structure of the seasons holds us in that. And it's included in the book as well. So if you'd like to investigate that, there's an audio with Second Spring in the book, so that you can find your way into finding your own medicine.
Oh, that is so good. And so before we wrap up, I would love for you to share a little bit about your own experience. Did the whole perimenopause, menopause time of your life hit you like a ton of bricks? Did you feel prepared? Was this part of your own sort of reawakening that prompted you to do this work and write your book?
Well, I mean, I've been a therapist for 30 years now, and it's always about me. It's always about my healing.
Right?
Otherwise, why would you pay for all that training? Oh my God. Anyway.
True.
Had loads of it.
Yep.
So yes, I wanted to understand what was happening, because I couldn't find support and information for the internal process. So there's lots of stuff about what to eat and exercise and stuff, but not to what the crazy McGinty stuff that's going on in my head. So I went off to learn at Red School with Uma Dinsmore-Tuli and did all these things. And I think what happened was because I'm pretty arrogant, actually, because as a therapist, so I'm very in touch with my body. And that was one of the identities that had to go. I really had to let go of knowing, of being this person who knew stuff, who knew information, and menopause asked me to be naked, to go out there naked and let go. And that was, really, as a professional well-being person, that was really hard. That was really, really hard. And actually, I had to stop for a while and really let go of knowing who I was. I stopped work for 6 months, who I was, what I thought I was, what I thought I wanted to do, who I thought I wanted to be. And through that, I think I feel more creative and more alive and more playful and more naughty and more
Wild.
I have more wild, and I have more choice now than I ever have done throughout my previous life.
Why do you say that? Like, why do you feel like you have more choice now? Because of that undoing?
Yeah, because of the undoing, exactly that.
Yeah.
That unwinding process, that unraveling process allows something new to come out. That, again, the book is called Second Spring because it's like the spring of our teenage years. And there's a quote in there from actually a friend of mine, and she says, "I've become the girl I always longed to be." We get back in touch with those spring-like qualities of possibility and play and exploration again, but with 50 years lived life this time.
Yeah. Much better perspective than being 14.
A little bit.
Maybe not so much.
A little bit.
Wow. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much, truly. And I would love for you to just let all of our amazing listeners know where they can find your wonderful book and you and your amazing work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the book is called Second Spring, The Self-Care Guide to Menopause, and you can find it in all the usual places. Amazon, if you like that, Barnes and Noble. It's on Audible. Okay. It's out in the States. It's out in Australia and New Zealand and the UK. If you're elsewhere, Audible is the better bet.
Okay.
And my website is katecodrington.co.uk, and there's a treasure trove of free yoga nidras, and there's a visual guide to the seasons and free workshops, and there's a ton of stuff there you can play with. And Instagram, I'm at Kate_Codrington.
Thank you. Yes, your website is beautiful. And I was checking out your resources. So everyone, just so you know, that's where you need to go to get everything from Kate. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I feel like this is so profound. And it's also really incredibly helpful for people who aren't anywhere near what we're going through in your 40s, 50s, 60s. It's a preparation, I feel like, of everything that you've shared.
And everybody knows someone who's been perimenopause. Your postman, your postperson, your boss, your sister, your mother, they're all out there.
Yes.
They need care and validation too.
Very true. Well, thank you again so much, Kate. This was great.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap. Be sure to click that subscribe button to join me for more Girl Talk Gone Menstrual in upcoming episodes. But in the meantime, check out my latest Period Party episode. And if you're looking for a deeper dive into your hormones, go ahead and take my period quiz at NicoleJardim.com/quiz.